Hey everyone, how's it going? We're back here. Not a Flyperbole, not a BSH podcast. You know, we're just gonna roll with the old Phantoms fix that Maddie and I tried to start up a couple years ago, and then I found myself too busy to do stuff. But this year, it's an interesting season for me because I haven't even introduced myself properly. My name is Steve Jaco. I host Flyperbole over on BSH, and when right now I'm doing Flyperbole and Broad Street Hockey Radio, or not Broad Street Hockey Radio. Oh my God. I'm doing PHLY post games, and I find myself just overloaded with hockey talk. So I've been doing Flype like every other week, and I was supposed to do it this week, but it's Thanksgiving week, and my usual co-host Ryan Quigley not available this week. And instead of doing a Flype without my usual co-host, I decided let's dust off the Phantoms fix. Let's talk about the kids because we don't talk about them enough. And this is a lot better to talk about than talking about the same 5 points about the power play and Trevor Zegras and Matvei Mishkov's struggles and all that crap. Who cares? Let's talk about the future of the Flyers, and who better to talk about that with than Broad Street Hockey and PHLY's own Maddie Campbell. Maddie, how are you today?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. Yeah, like the nice thing about my day job is Thanksgiving week actually tends to be pretty chill because a lot of the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving are very hectic. So Thanksgiving week has been chill, and we got off a little bit early today, so perfect to knock out a little podcast. So I'm doing great.
Amazing.
I'm looking forward to Turkey Day. You looking forward to it? You looking forward to a little turkey and all that?
I guess. We don't do like a whole big thing, and
Yeah.
my sister doesn't eat meat, so we're just making like a regular dinner.
Oh, that's nice. That's
nice to hang out, but
yeah, absolutely. I'm going over to my sister's as well, so that should be nice. It's going to be very low key, just a 4 people event, and if you include her dogs as people, I guess 6 people. But yeah, sadly we can't bring Brucey with us because that would be, I know, poor guy. I don't know if he would get along great with them or not, but he'll be fine. We'll give him a little bit of turkey when we get back, and then he'll drift off to sleep from the tryptophan. So it'll be perfect. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit of Lehigh Valley Phantoms right here. And I think it's actually, so I would love to watch more Phantoms hockey, but my attention span is already completely gone between day job, 2 podcasts, and also just like, I don't know, all this other crap that I pay attention to. I got no attention span.
Yeah.
So watching the Phantoms on top of all of that's really tough. But you watch a ton of Phantoms. You go to a ton of Phantoms games. So it's great to talk to you about this. And based on what I've seen, the stats I compiled pre-show here, it seems like the Phantoms are actually having a pretty nice year after struggling for a few years under Ian LaPerriere. And they changed coaches in the offseason. I meant to put the head coach. Oh, here he is, John Snowden. So John Snowden is the new head coach of the Phantoms, or at least new for this season. And they are so far 11-5-1, 24 points, 3rd in the Atlantic Division. But that seems like it's a tough division because they're actually the 6th best record in the AHL.
Yeah.
So overall thoughts on the Phantoms so far this season?
I have been so pleasantly surprised so far. I figured they were going to be better this year just based on the system they were going to be running and just the, I would say, strength of the roster. It's a little bit better this year. But I figured it was going to be maybe a little bit of a slow start while they get used to the new system and all that. But they've been adjusting very quickly. They seem like they've been more prepared for their games. So they've been, more consistent game over game, which was like a huge problem last year. Kind of everything is going well broadly. So
it's all coming up. It's all coming up Millhouse, as Simpsons fans would say over here. But no, that's awesome. I love to see it. And the preparation is really nice because what you always hear about Ian LaPerriere is one of the nicest guys in the game. Great guy to have in your organization. I think he ended up taking a scouting job with the Islanders organization, right?
Yeah.
So I'm happy for him, but it always felt like he was a little over his head with the head coaching situation for the Phantoms.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. And just something we kept seeing with them over the last few years is like, you never really knew what team you were going to get on a nightly basis. Like they might look great. They might look completely not competitive. And there was no like really discernible pattern. So It was, I'm sure, frustrating for them, frustrating to watch for everybody else, but it seems like they're finally stabilizing a little bit.
That is so fantastic to hear because this team is so future focused right now. The Flyers organization, they're in the rebuild. They've acknowledged at last that they're in a rebuild.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see pieces come together for the future. I wanted to mention real quick before we get further into it, thanks to our sponsor FanDuel for presenting this, and we will have odds later in the show. But going back to just the overall picture, like you've got Matvei Michkov, obviously, and whatever you might think about his struggles this year, he is 20 years old and scored 60 plus points in his rookie season. I think he's going to be all right.
He's going to be fine.
He's going to be fine. You look at like Trevor Zegras, who they traded for in the offseason. Fantastic young player. He's been dynamic offensively in a way that we haven't seen in a while. Very cool to see. And then Porter Martone, who we're going to talk about later in the show, is going to be a huge part of that puzzle for the Flyers in the future. But there's a couple guys that you look at on the current Phantoms team that really, are guys that we could be talking about in the next couple of years, especially if the team makes some moves, because we're looking at the wingers on the Flyers and you're like, at some point, some of these guys got to move. You look at Owen Tippett, you look at Travis Konechny, you even look at guys like Bobby Brink, like who is going to be on the future team? And then you look at guys on the Phantoms like Alex Bump and Denver Barkey, and you're like, these are good players that are probably going to force their way up for some playing time at some point. So let's start with Alex Bump, who statistically is off to a really nice start with the Phantoms. After a lot of people expected him to make the Flyers out of camp, probably good he didn't, because if you look at Nikita Grabenkin, who did make the Flyers, barely playing.
Yeah.
He's actually getting in the lineup. We're recording this on November 26th. They are playing the Florida Panthers tonight. Grabenkin is getting back in the lineup, but he's been out for a handful of games.
Yeah.
And with young guys, it's all about just getting them playing time. That's the main reason Jett Luchanko went back to juniors, another guy we'll talk about later in the game. And Bump is currently leading the Phantoms in points with 15 points, 4 goals, 11 assists. Love to see it. What have you thought of Bump's game so far this season?
It's been good. I think it's been a little bit uneven. He had kind of a tough start to the season where it seemed like he was still dealing with some of the things that were troubling him in the playoffs last year. Like, wasn't really able to find space for himself to create a lot offensively, was kind of struggling with how tightly he was being defended. But over the last 7 to 10 games, I should have fact checked this before we got started, but it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. And it's a lot harder to look at a lot of these statistics for the minor leagues than it is for a lot of the NHL stuff. Because the NHL stuff, you can just open up the NHL website, see the full game log for guys. You can pull up Hockey Reference. You can pull up Puckpedia, ton of resources. The AHL, you pretty much have the AHL website, which is not great for statistics.
Not great.
And then I think Hockey Database, Hockey DB has some pretty good stuff for minors and juniors. So shout out to Hockey DB for actually having some good info and all this stuff.
Yeah. But in, the last handful of games since he was moved up to that top line with Lane Peterson and Denver Barkey, he's been fantastic, really popping off offensively, which has been great to see. But yeah, I think I've been thinking a lot about how his game is trending, especially with the really hot couple of games he had last week. And then fans, part of the media sphere, were like really working themselves up into a fervor about, is it time to call him up? And I think that might have been a little bit premature. He's still figuring it out. I think he's had a handful of good games at this point, or a handful of really good games at this point, but I don't know that that's like necessarily banging down the door for an NHL recall. I love that he's getting a ton of minutes and he's made a lot of progress from where he was when the season started. Love all of that. That's great. Like, you got to leave him down there to cook a little bit more. So.
Yes. And I think that's kind of the lesson the Flyers have learned over the past few years. And you're even seeing it, like, I would never argue that Matvei Michkov needs to go back to the minors or anything, but we're seeing growing pains this season. He learned a tough lesson in the off season that maybe don't take like the whole off season off, like maybe get some training in there. And it's also, he's learning a lot of lessons about just NHL defending. I was actually thinking when you were talking about Bump and his lack of space to really work, I was thinking about Mishkov's struggles this season because I think his biggest problem is he doesn't have any room to work because defenders are getting right on him.
Yeah.
His line mates aren't doing him any favors as far as generating space for him. In fact, that's I think the biggest thing the Flyers are missing by having a big top line center is somebody to create that space for Mishkov. And organizationally, you see that throughout the Flyers. They really don't have that center depth like anywhere. You know, you've got Couturier, who's old and cooked at this point, and we love Coots, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Noah Cates is on the smaller side. And then the guys like Luchanko's in the OHL right now, also not big. And Nesbitt, who's their biggest, Nesbitt and I'd say Berglund are their big options as far as like actual physical size goes.
Yeah.
And they're not, who knows when you'll see them with the AHL team or the NHL team. But yeah, I mean, Bump, though, it's encouraging to hear that he's adapting a little bit. I do want to see him just kind of work it out throughout the season.
Yeah.
And there's not a need for him at the NHL level right now. Until there's an injury, which, knock on wood on that, there's not really a need for that. Because if you look at the fourth line right now, they have played Garnet Hathaway in every game this season. And Garnet Hathaway has not looked good.
No.
And I like Mr. Anger over there, right? But Guard Angry, but like, he just has not looked good this year. It doesn't matter. He's staying in the lineup.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Nick Delorier has played a bunch of games this year. Whatever. But they've got Grabenkin up there to play that role and step up if there's an injury. And, you know, Rodrigo Abels is a guy who is fine most nights. You know, he's an okay hockey player. He's fine for a fourth line role there.
Yeah.
And Bump's not playing center anyway. So there's no reason to bring him up in that scenario. And I think, you know, just let him kind of marinate for the rest of the season. Let's see what he's got next year, or maybe late this year if they decide to make any moves at the deadline. But that's a big if right now because the Flyers are in the playoff hunt right now. Who knows what the heck they're going to do in a couple months. But, you know, I like what I'm seeing from Bump as far as just like learning the pro game. And Denver Barkey is a guy you mentioned who was playing with him, and that's a guy we're excited for. He's again size challenged. He's just a little guy, but he's a very talented hockey player. He's a guy who has a lot of good scrappy energy, very Flyers game to him. And he's third in points on the team right now with 13, 7 goals, 6 assists, leads the team in goals scored, which that's one of the things that's going to be one of my themes talking about these kids is goal scoring ability. Because if you look at the big club right now, that's their biggest problem is scoring goals. They cannot score goals. I think they're one of the 5 lowest teams in the league as far as goals scored go. So anywhere you can generate that offense is really important. So it's great to see Barkey find that goal scoring touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's another one who's just sort of started to come on over the last like maybe 10 games. Very beginning of the season, it looked like he was still figuring it out, getting pushed around a little bit. But I think what was encouraging even in that was he was always competing, always playing hard. And I think that helped him to hold on to that top line role, even when he wasn't producing at a super high rate. Now he's doing that as well. So he's been really rounding out his game nicely and quite quickly. And yeah, it's been awesome to see because I think it's always a big question mark when these undersized but still highly productive junior players graduate to the pros. Like, are they going to be able to keep up that level of production? Are they going to be able to outperform their size? And so far, he's totally doing that. So that's been really super encouraging to see.
And he's only 20 years old. So they're still just like, he's so young.
Yeah.
There's so much room to grow and learn. And you're talking about little guys, right? The first guy I think of is Bobby Brink on the Flyers. Bobby Brink is a real tiny guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like just in the past year and a half, he's really started figuring out how to work his pro game.
Yeah.
And it's real, like what he's shown us at times this year has been awesome. Like, I thought for a while, I did not know what his role with the team moving forward would be. I'm still a little nebulous on it, to be honest with you. And it's due to guys like Bump and Barkey waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they have room for all these guys, but it's encouraging to see Brink figure out what he's strong at. And that seems to be just offensive creation, right? Creating plays, just being creative on the offensive end. And what do you say Barkey's biggest strength is so far based on what you've seen?
Definitely the forechecking game that he's been able to bring. He's just like an absolute nightmare to play against. And he's been getting a ton of minutes in all situations. Like they've got him penalty killing this year immediately, because he's been such a menace in that way. And it's been awesome. The funny thing too is like how much the coaching staff also seems to like him immediately. Like every time Snowden talks about him, he's just like raving, loves his game. I mean, the thing he always says is just, he's a hockey player, which to me just feels like, I don't know, that's like his perfect player, what it sort of suggests to me.
That just screams fan favorite in the future to me. Like if Barkey makes it up here, and who knows what the heck that could be, but right now, I mean, based on what I'm hearing, he sounds like he could be a really fun third line player for this team where he kills some penalties, he gets in the corner, he mucks it up, but he can score some goals too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and he's still a ways away from totally figuring it out, but I think they really might have something there.
That's awesome. I love to hear that so much. And those are my two big guys. I mean, as far as non-goaltenders go, because both goaltenders are both young guys that I think have big opportunities for the Flyers in the next couple of years. And let's talk. I've already transitioned into it, so let's talk about the goaltenders. So Aleksei Kolosov was a big point of contention last year, where Kolosov came in, kind of expected a role with the NHL club, and it turned into a fiasco. And the team was carrying 3 goaltenders for a while. Total mess. And this year, he really seems to have kind of accepted his role and accepted his development, which he needed. And it seems to be working out so far. His AHL numbers are really strong so far. 6-3-1, 2.51 GAA, 913 save percentage. What do you think about Kolosov? He just seems, based on what I saw with the Flyers, it seems like he's a little bit steadier. It seems like he's a little bit calmer so far.
Yeah, definitely. He has definitely, it seems like, settled down his play pretty significantly. The fact that he's been getting consistent reps this year, not like sitting for a month at a time, like while they figure out what they're doing with him. That's been a huge boost. Now he's definitely had some games where he's looked a little like scrambly or looking like he's been having trouble with his reads. But they've been definitely fewer and farther between. And also he's been getting a lot more run support from the skaters at this point. So even if he's having a sort of like game, it's not blowing up on the team in a really spectacular way. So it seems like he's definitely also kind of grabbed the starting job.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. So they're giving him a lot of runway to keep figuring it out. And he's been really good so far, I would say.
And the thing about Kolosov that I think a lot of people forget is he's not like Fedotov. The biggest problem with him was he came in here like a raw prospect that could be developed, but he was nearly 30 years old.
Yeah.
So like, you can't really teach him that much at that point. Maybe Columbus can show us otherwise, but I'm not expecting much. But Kolosov's in his early to mid 20s at this point. I think more mid 20s, but that's still time to grow as a goaltender, still time to learn. So I think it's very encouraging to see him do this. It's nice that he's grabbed the starting job, because there is an opportunity for him in the next couple of years, because we continue to see Sam Ersson with the big club struggle a little bit. Like, we all like Sam Ersson. I don't think I've met somebody who doesn't like Sam Ersson, because I mean, he just seems like a cool guy. Like, he's a guy you root for. But Sam Ersson, we see it time and time again where we all say, I thought he played well, but his numbers sucked. And this team needs him to step up. And like Dan Vladar easily took that starting job from him. Like, within a couple games, you're like, oh, this guy's way better. And I love to see it with Vladar, because I think he has been really good and it's been a great influence for this team. He's the main reason this team's in playoff contention still, because they haven't scored the goals to back that up at all. But, it's a disappointment as far as Ersson goes to not see him, step up to these opportunities when he's been given it. And I wonder if Kolosov is going to get an opportunity to maybe in the next season or two splits some time with Vladar, because there's guys coming up, and I don't know where the Flyers goaltending is after these guys, but they have 3 or 4 young guys right now that really could make a difference. Carson Bjarnason, who we're going to talk about in a moment, but we also have Zavragin over in Russia, who has put up, Yegor Zavragin has put up just fantastic numbers overseas. I mean, with the minor league team, the VHL over there, he played 2 games, was 2-0-0 with a 148 GAA and a 948 save percentage, which is bonkers.
Yeah.
And then with St. Petersburg SKA, he had 11 games played. He was only 5-6-0, but I don't think that was his fault, because he had a 248 GAA and a 924 save percentage. Like 924, and I know it's the KHL. I know we're talking about like apples and oranges, but like it's a pretty good league at the end of the day. Like,
yeah.
And I feel like putting up numbers at the KHL level is a little bit more reliable than going based off of somebody's like OHL or WHL numbers, or even NCAA to a point.
Yeah.
Believe me, you can get excited about any of them. And to see anything 920 plus save percentage wise is always really good. But the thing about Zavragin, and I think we all know this, but it's always worth reiterating, is unless Danny Briere and Keith Jones can work some magic like they did with Fedotov or Mishkov, we're probably 2 years away from seeing him. And that's okay, because he's only 20. So I'm not like in a rush, especially considering goaltender development schedules. But another guy who's young, and if Ersson gets pushed out, or if they move on from Vladar in the next couple of years, will have a real opportunity in front of him, is Carson Bjarnason, who is playing his first pro year. Pretty good numbers for that first pro year. 4-2-1, 266 GAA, 904 save percentage. You'd like to see that a little bit higher, but it's his first pro year. Anything above 900, I'm pretty encouraged by.
Yeah, I think he's looked a little bit shaky at times, but it's like he's looked about as shaky as I expected him to, considering, you know, where he's at in his development and where he is in the season. So I think he's been pretty good.
I'll take pretty
Can't really ask for much more at this point.
I'll take pretty good after the fiasco we've seen over the past few years. And he's also another guy who's only 20 years old, so he's got a lot to learn. I would say Bjarnason, much like Alex Bump, let him cook for a little bit, let him, you know, just kind of round out into who he's going to be.
Yeah.
But Kolosov, if he can show himself to be a reliable guy, we really could have an opportunity in the next year or two to get with the big club and be a guy in there, because I wonder where the patience is with the big club with Sam Ersson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think with the fan base, we all kind of are getting a little impatient with it. It's, you see it over and over and you keep making excuses for a guy, but how many times do you have to put up like an 890 save percentage before that's just who you are?
Yeah.
Kind of a bummer, but oh well. So some of the other interesting things with the Phantoms, we were hoping to get an extended look at Oliver Bonk this year, and he's actually been hurt all year. Is he any closer to being back and being in action?
It seems like it. I think as of last week, he was maybe not full practicing with the Flyers, but like, you know, taking part. So it seems like trending towards getting cleared medically. I don't know exactly what the timeline is at this point. I don't even know if they have a firm timeline at this point, but hopefully, you know, sometime in December, we'll see him make his pro debut.
That would be nice. I mean, a lot of people were looking forward to seeing exactly what he could bring to the table. And that is one area where the big club, it isn't perfect, but they have a decent amount of depth at defense. You know, Sanheim and York aren't going anywhere unless, like, I don't know, Quinn Hughes is actually available, right? And then if you look, like, I really like Drysdale and Andre. I think Drysdale's really upgraded his game this year, and I'm glad they're finally letting Andre do his thing after just all those frustrating, you know, up and down moments. It seems like he's actually found a role with the club. Yeah. Which is super cool. And then the third pair, I mean, Nick Seeler is who he is. He's a fine defenseman. We all like Nick Seeler. I don't think anybody loves Nick Seeler, but we all like him. And then when you look over at like Zamola and Juleson, like Zamola, I feel like he is who he is at this point. He's always going to be inconsistent. Juleson is just one of those guys that coaches love that fans hate to watch. He's super slow.
Yeah.
He feels like a 1 to 2 year flyer. and then he's a trivia question after that.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll find out. But, it's a space where there's a little bit of room for bunk, but unless the club makes a drastic move to try and get a center or upgrade, it feels like a lot of these guys, because a lot of these guys are young or in their prime, are set in place for the next few years. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason to necessarily rush him along.
No, definitely not. Like we keep saying, it's best to just let these guys cook.
Let them cook, because there's no reason. This team's not winning a cup this year. They might make the playoffs, which would be cool, but they're not winning a cup, so there's no reason to rush anybody along unless Danny Briere can get Quinn Hughes or something. There's just not as the current makeup of this team at the NHL level is. They're just not there.
Yeah.
They're just not there. It's just not enough pieces, but they're fun. There's a lot of fun stuff to watch. And I guess my last question to focus on the Phantoms. So we talked a lot about the big names. Are there any other standouts to you? And if the Flyers wanted to make a call up for someone on the fourth line, let's say Abels gets hurt, or they just want to change pace because we've seen some pretty lousy games from all 3 or 4 of those guys on the fourth line. Who do you think the best candidate would be?
To sort of answer that backwards, the fourth line question is a weird one for me because it's a lot of prospects down with the Phantoms right now, and I don't know that I super want any of the big guys playing on the fourth line.
No.
And then it's a handful that are, I would say, not really ready yet. So at this point, it's if they want to sort of change up the mix, you would be looking at bringing Grundstrom back up, maybe bringing up Richard, a veteran to see what they can do. But yeah, I don't know that we're at a point where I feel super confident advocating for one of the prospects to be brought up. Maybe that changes, in the next couple of months, but so far I want to leave them alone.
Yeah, and I feel like if they need somebody at this point, you'd probably be looking Gaucher already got called up for a cup of coffee this year. So Gaucher's always a guy that you're fine throwing into the mix there. Yeah. If Grundstrom, you mentioned before, Grundstrom also had a cup of coffee with the team, and he's had good AHL numbers. He's a guy that they picked him. Was it off of waivers or in a trade that they got Grundstrom? I'm trying to remember.
That was the Ellis trade.
That's right. They got rid of the Ellis contract. I forgot about that. There's so many things happen in the course of a hockey season.
Yeah.
You forget some of those little things like that. Or, even Anthony Richard, who people lovingly call Tony Dick over there. He's got so much speed that he can really just be a fun guy to call up for a couple games here and there. So those are probably your big candidates, but who's your under the radar guy? Who are we not paying attention to with the Phantoms that we really should be paying attention to?
I've been liking Aleksei Kolosov's season so far. He's a guy who they just have so many forwards down there, so they can't get everybody in for every single game. And he's been sort of rotating a little bit in and out of the lineup, but when he's been in, he's been really good. I don't know that he's quite ready for a call up yet. He's still got some seasoning to do, but I think he's, developing his game in a positive way, which has been nice to see. I would say on the defense, I had this thought about 10 games in that I haven't really been noticing Hunter McDonald super much.
Who's a guy we heard a lot about a couple years ago.
Which I think was a good thing because, last year he was taking a ton of penalties, especially early in the season. Really seemed to be struggling with their defensive zone structure for a lot of the season. And this year he's been, I would say, quietly effective, which has been fabulous. Love to see that.
That is nice. And, that's a big body over there. That's somebody who we talk a lot about moving on from Rasmus Ristolainen, who I forgot was on the roster until I just brought him up just now. But he is a guy who you do see the role as far as having a big body to clear out traffic in front of the net, right?
Yeah.
And I am interested to see what the Flyers look like once he comes back. I hope it's not at the expense of Emile Andre whenever that happens.
I know.
But, yeah, it's a big worry right there. But McDonald, you do wonder in the future, because they did make that emphasis on size at the last draft. So they want to upgrade a little bit, get some more physicality in there. And he's a guy you do consider if they get to move on from Risto and maybe Juleson and even Sealer, you know, he's got a few guys that are getting up there that you've got to replace that at some point. So McDonald, you know, is a guy who's in the mix for that at some point.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, like I've sneaky liked Ty Murchison's season, rookie year in the league, and have really loved what they've been getting from Christian Kyrou since that trade.
Yes, I love that trade because it was very clear. You know, we talked about all the logjam at wing, right?
Yeah.
Samo Tuamala had no role with this team at all. So it was time to move on. And to be able to get a guy like Christian Kyrou, who is very useful at the AHL level, was fantastic.
Yeah, and he's been better, I think, than anybody really thought he would be. I mean, you sort of knew that there was some offensive potential there, but I think he's been steadier defensively than maybe anybody expected. It seems like the coaching staff hasn't like outright said that we didn't think this guy was going to be good defensively, but I think there are notes of pleasant surprise in their read of him.
I'm detecting notes of pleasant surprise. Yes. Very nice. I love that. I really thought that was a savvy move from that. That was the kind of stuff that I always wanted Ron Hextall to do.
Yeah.
When he was the GM of the Flyers, because you knew Ron Hextall was very cognizant of the AHL level. And because this is just common sense to most people, but like, if you want guys to learn how to succeed, they need to be able to succeed at all levels. And if you just have like a trash bin of a team that you're just signing warm bodies to, how are your young guys supposed to learn with them how to play better?
Yeah.
And it seems like Briere is actually like putting useful players down there for these guys to play with, you know? So Christian Kyrou, that's a great move because you're getting somebody who can move the puck and really just help this team overall.
Yeah. Now, like, I don't know what they're going to do with him long-term because he's still pretty young. Like, do they need another undersized mobile defenseman in the NHL picture? I don't know. They've got a lot of them, but you know, he's been fantastic for the Phantoms, so that's all I need to concern myself with right now.
You just trade like 5 guys away for one stud, and then you got a bunch of spaces open all of a sudden.
Right.
So yeah,
Perfect.
that's all, yeah. It's simple. Come on. You know what to do right there. Well, awesome. I'm glad to hear all this great information about the Phantoms. And I'd like to shift to maybe the other, I would say the single most exciting guy in the pipeline for the Philadelphia Flyers. And before I do, I just want to mention our good friends over at FanDuel who are sponsoring the show. And if you go over on a FanDuel right now and you go to the hockey section, there's an NCAA hockey section. And Porter Martone's own Michigan State Spartans, right? It's the Spartans.
Spartans, yeah.
The Michigan State Spartans are actually tied with Penn State and Michigan for the favorites to win the NCAA hockey championship this year. So the Frozen Four winner. So plus 600 for Michigan State. So you might want to jump on that bandwagon right now. And some Flyers power down at the old NCAA level. And Porter Martone, I mean, I haven't watched a lot. I've seen some highlights and I love every highlight I've seen, but his numbers look pretty good so far for his NCAA debut season. He's got 18 points in 12 games played at Michigan State, 10 goals, 8 assists. That's more points than Gavin McKenna. Thank you very much. Who's only got 4 goals and 14 assists. So
it is that. Also more points than James Hagen's.
Ooh, yeah, like that.
Spicy.
That is spicy because these two are going to be compared for the rest of time.
Yeah.
It does seem like people are a lot less salty about Martone over Hagen's because they just love Martone's talent so much than necessarily like Luchanko over Buyum, which people will not drop no matter what ever.
Yes.
Or even Gauthier versus Drysdale, which we are in the Broad Street Hockey Slack constantly just telling people to drop it because it's not worth even thinking about Gauthier. And I know he's blowing up with the Ducks this year. I know it's going to piss me off. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it at all because I don't need that stress in my life. I don't need that. I'd rather just celebrate Jamie Drysdale coming along defensively like he has. He looks way better. I don't want to think about any of those guys right now. I want to think about Porter Martone because 18 points, 12 games played. Here's my biggest thing. 10 goals. This man is scoring goals. 10 goals in 12 games? That's awesome.
Yeah, he's been fantastic for them. And I think what's even more encouraging than just purely that he's scoring goals to me is that he's just been so clutch for them. Like last weekend, they got swept by Wisconsin. They did not really have their best game, but Martone was still looked great for them. I think the Friday game, they scored 4 goals as a team. Martone had 2 of them, assisted on one of the others. And then on Saturday, they were trailing 1-0. Like at the end of the third period, they got a power play with like a minute left. He scores to send it to overtime. They lost in overtime, but like love that he got them there.
Well, this is all the stuff we were saying about Mishkov last year. Why we got so excited about that Mishkov rookie season was that he was scoring clutch goals. You know, he's scoring those overtime winners. He's scoring those games to tie it to get into overtime. That's the sign of greatness right there, in my opinion.
Yeah. And just across the board, he's been great for them, like really involved offensively, but also like physical and kind of a shit disturber.
Oh, that's a flyer.
Yeah, he's such a flyer. That's end of the day. That's it.
That's awesome. Just every time I see a highlight of this guy, usually it'll be somebody in Broad Street Hockey comes into the Slack, is like they run in like Mac on Always Sunny going like, guys, I have news. And you see just like the coolest clip of him just doing like baller shit at the NCAA level.
Yeah.
And what I love is every time I see it, his poise just seems outstanding. Like it seems like he's never panicking. He's got full view of the ice. His skating has impressed me every time I've seen a highlight of this guy, which for a Flyers prospect to be able to skate out of the gate is unbelievable.
Love that.
Just so many guys like Tyson Forrester are like, well, his hockey sense is fantastic. And his shot is next level. He doesn't know how to skate at all.
Yeah, it's been great. And I know this is something Brad has talked about, who's been just like so locked in on Michigan State for us, which has been fabulous. But just that Martone really seems to just have it. Like the puck finds him no matter what. And I think it's sort of like a nebulous quality, but it is so valuable.
I know what you mean. Like it sounds nebulous, but I think it just comes down to positioning.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to having instincts for the offensive zone. And that's, again, to talk about Mishkov again, and I would say Trevor Zegras in that boat too.
Yeah.
These are guys that know where the puck is supposed to be, and they put themselves in the position. I throw Tyson Forrester in there too, because I think Tyson Forrester and maybe Noah Cates, like these guys are just smart hockey players that can see the play ahead of time and know how it's going to form and put themselves in the right spot. So he just sounds like everything. I understand why Keith Jones and Danny Briere were giddy to draft him, because you see those clips of Keith Jones and he's like, I can't believe he was available. Like it's ridiculous. And it's because like he has everything they want, where he's got physicality, right? But he can score like crazy. Like he just knows how to put the puck in the back of the net, but he's smart.
Yeah.
And that seems like that's the number one thing they value in their drafting philosophy. And like, if you even look at the Jett Luchanko one, right? Like you could talk about him versus Zeev all day, but they really value Jett's intelligence on the ice.
Yeah.
And you've seen that in his limited looks with the Flyers. Jett Luchanko, when he goes out there, you notice his speed because he's got immense speed, but you notice his hockey smarts. You notice just how he knows how to position himself. He knows where the pace of play is going. Now he can't take a shot, save his life. And if you look over at Jett's numbers in the OHL level right now, he's having a pretty good year with the Guelph Storm. He had 17 points in 11 games played, 2 goals and 15 assists. And he actually just recently got traded to the Brantford Bulldogs, which is a great name. I love alliteration. So it's much more fun to say than Guelph Storm.
Yeah.
Don't like that. But you know, that number one problem with Jett is always goes back to the scoring, right? And he still isn't doing that. He had 2 goals, 15 assists for the Storm. And you saw like he had, I think, one of the only shots the fourth line had put up in the first dozen games for the Flyers. It was a really nice one shot. It was that like he kind of went to the outside, came in on the goal, made a little move and tried to jam it in on the goaltender. Fantastic. Love that. But need a lot more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I guess we could shift to Jett real quick, but it's interesting that we've talked about how lousy his team was. The Guelph Storm were 11-11-2. He got traded to the Bulldogs, who actually have the best record in the OHL, 18-0-5.
Yeah, they're a wagon.
They are a wagon. And a lot of that comes down to Kraken prospect Jake O'Brien, who's got 40 points in 21 games played.
Insane.
40 points. It's crazy to think about. I wonder how much playing time Jett's going to get on a team like this versus Guelph, where Guelph, like, he's clearly one of their top players off the bat. But I think it's exciting that he'll get to play with some higher end talent, a team that is just better overall. I'm just hoping maybe they could just teach him how to shoot the damn puck.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Like, I think getting him onto a better team is going to help probably unlock a little bit more offense broadly. He'll have some teammates who are probably better able to finish on more of those chances that he's creating for them. He's going to be playing some meaningful hockey late in the year, which is exciting as well. But the one thing the trade doesn't do is like magically materialize the goal scoring. That's something he's going to have to continue to work at. And I just hope that, like, if he really pops off offensively the rest of the season, but it's overwhelmingly assists, that like the overall point total doesn't obscure the rest of the work that still needs to be happening.
Right. I agree with that. And it's one of those things where I'm not as bothered, I think, by the lack of like offenses a lot of people are. And I think a lot of that is just knowing the talent he's going to have at the wings. And that's one of the interesting things about how the Flyers are currently being built, because they don't have a number one center in the pipeline right now. They foreseeably don't have one, period. Who knows when it's going to materialize?
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, like, we were having a full discussion this morning in the Slack channel where we were talking about like getting a 1C versus a 1D, because we were talking about the possibility of Quinn Hughes being available and how much you'd give up for him.
Yeah.
And that's a big factor. But, in both situations, you can talk about kind of making it by committee, where I feel like I prefer having a 1C, because I think with the defense, if you have 6 really good defensemen, you can make up for not having one dominant defenseman. And I still want a 1C, don't get me wrong. I think Travis Sanheim's solid, but I think he should be playing with the number one defenseman.
Yeah.
But center, it's a little bit harder to kind of do that by committee. And it's just because you rely on a top line center. We think about when Couturier was that guy for a couple of years. We think about when Giroux was that for a while. We think about Jeff Carter. We think about Bobby friggin' Clark. These are guys you're expecting to play in all situations. These are guys that have to do a lot on defense that you don't think about. Sean Couturier in particular, having to go back and be the center guy. I think about Eric Lindros, obviously. I just didn't mention my favorite player of all time. But there's a lot to do at a number one center position, whereas number one defenseman, you're just looking for guys who can play a shit ton of minutes every night, pretty much.
Yeah.
So right now we're looking at, Jett, if he doesn't improve his scoring, you think of him maybe as a 2 at very best, more likely a 3.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing to have. You need those guys. Like, a hockey team is a village. There's not just one role. And Florida, obviously a lot of it comes from Alexander Barkov, but Florida's success also comes from just having so much depth throughout, having Sam Bennett in there, having obviously Kachuk, but so many of those other guys that go on that team. I'm blanking on some of the names right now, but there's just like, they're so stacked at like every forward position that you could have Alexander Barkov go out for like the entire season and you still will easily make the playoffs.
Yeah. And I think the big thing with Luchanko is I agree with you that I don't need him to necessarily like totally explode as a goal scorer. But I think I just need him to be some level of shooting, scoring threat, because I think that was the big thing in the AHL playoffs last year is in the longer series against Hershey, they very quickly figured out that he is just not going to shoot. He's always going to try to set up his line mates, and that made their job defending a whole lot easier. So they were able to shut that line down. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but I think it's, maybe not as steep of a hill to climb as you would think.
Right. Well, and it goes back to what I was talking about before with Mishkov and having room to work.
Yeah.
And you talk about bump also in that respect. And those guys aren't going to have room to work if they don't think the center is going to be a threat. Or even if you want to put it in like football terminology, right? People are going to load up on the Eagles if they don't expect the Eagles to throw the ball. They're just going to go for the run the entire time. And it's the same thing where they don't expect this guy to do anything with the puck. So go ahead, take the puck, do whatever. It doesn't matter. This guy's the one that we're going to cover and smother.
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, Jett, I hope you can work it out because I love everything else about this game. I really do. I think the other big thing that the big guy they have at center, because Jack Berglund's a guy who he will do stuff occasionally that makes you go, oh, maybe. But largely people have kind of written off Berglund as a possibility for being in the mix. Please prove us wrong.
Would love to be wrong.
Because he's huge. He's a big boy. The other big boy that I think is, I would say this might be the current most controversial Danny Briere pick here because it ruined the entire mood at the draft party, is Jack Nesbitt, who they traded up to get. They traded an extra. I love how people always phrase it as like they traded 2 first-round picks to get him. No, they exchanged spots for one of them, and they traded the later pick. Okay. Yeah. Really, they just gave up 1 extra first-round pick to move up.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would I prefer to have 2 picks and not no Nesbitt? Maybe, but it's a big swing regardless. Yeah. And he's a guy that they believe in. So far, we haven't heard as much about him from the OHL level, but 19 points so far in 18 games played for the Windsor Spitfires, 7 goals, 12 assists. Have you heard anything about how Nesbitt's looked so far in his junior show?
I think he's been good, but not spectacular necessarily, which I think is more or less what I expected. I think maybe there were some inflated expectations with him. Just the fact that he came into Dev Camp looking a little bit better than people might have expected. He hung around a little bit longer in training camp than people might have expected. And then suddenly it was like, okay, well, maybe the Flyers were really right immediately about this guy. And maybe he could even be ready to jump into the AHL next year when that 19-year-old rule kicks in. Pause. He's going to finish out his junior career probably next year, like was expected in a normal development track. But, he's been good. He's still figuring it out.
I'll take good and figuring it out because, again, you're talking about another very young guy. There's a lot to figure out. It just feels like this is one where the Flyers are really banking on their own development skills and a smart hockey player for sure. I think they like a lot of his instincts, and obviously they like that size, but a lot more of a project than, say, a Porter Martone.
Sure.
But who isn't? I mean, Porter Martone could be playing with the club this year, and I think he'd actually be great. But I'm happy he's taking this year to play at the NCAA level up a little bit more because he's playing with some great guys. I mean, we've mentioned a couple of them already, but just talking about Gavin McKenna, right? You're playing against some of the best up and coming guys out there. He's also getting to play with one of his maybe future teammates in Vansagi. So it's some cool stuff to him going there, but also just the club doesn't need him yet. They have a logjam at wing. Trevor Zegras, who they traded for to be a center, is playing at wing currently. So there's not really I want to make sure he's coming into the best situation possible. And I feel like the Flyers need to figure out some trades to clear some space for him before he comes in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. I'm perfectly happy having some of these guys be third line players, but something's got to give.
Yeah.
What that is? Well, that's our great mystery for the next couple
above my pay grade.
I think that's above everybody. It might not even be above Danny Briere's pay grade right now. I don't envy him on that front. I don't envy him at all. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about. Maddie, any other guys in the pipeline you wanted to call out here? Any notable like Flyers prospects that we haven't discussed?
I think we've kind of hit all the major points.
Yeah. I mean, the
Top
big
of my
thing
head.
is Martone, right?
Yeah.
It's just that he looks great. And I'm just so excited because I just feel like this guy is going to transform this team. And especially once Mishkov figures out whatever he needs to figure out, because again, I think a lot of it's space. And when you have a top 6 that potentially has Mishkov, Forrester, and Martone, and we don't even know who's going to make it out of like Konechny, Tippett, Brink, Zegras. Like, I don't know.
It's going to be electric.
Yeah. Your entire top 9 could be really stacked if you can find a way to make all these guys work and figure something out at center. And this is not trying to offend Christian Dvorak, Sean Couturier, and Noah Cates, but you do need to get an upgrade there at some point. And I just don't feel, I mean, do you agree with me that like so far Zegras is just not feeling like a center?
Yeah. I mean, it's early and maybe at some point they give him like a true run at it, not doing the hybrid situation, but yeah, I don't know.
And Christian Dvorak, who I really think has been a pleasant surprise. I really like the way he plays hockey. You can't handcuff Zegras to him for his entire career. Like you can't do that. And I need to see Zegras do it on his. Zegras, I think, is your number one question mark for the Flyers moving forward because he's been outstanding through his first like 21-ish games. But if he's not a center and you have all these great wings, do you want to commit a big salary to him for the foreseeable future? I don't know. Again, above my pay grade.
Yeah.
So interesting times for sure. But all right. Well, thanks for sitting down with me, Maddie. This was great. Love talking about the prospects. Love hearing about the Phantoms because again, don't hear enough about the Phantoms, and you are one of the few people who goes out there and writes about them a bunch.
Glad to be here. Happy to talk about the Phantoms literally anytime.
Awesome. Well, if people wanted to reach out to you on the socials, where is the best place to reach you?
I'm technically still on Twitter.
Yeah. Just free Broad Street Hockey and PHLY. Yeah, that's all. Find Maddie.
That's the meaningful stuff.
Exactly. I'm pretty active on Blue Sky. If you want to follow me there, it's Flyperbole. You can also follow me at Esteban for her. But if it's for hockey purposes, make it Flyperbole. Flyperbole on Instagram and TikTok as well. The Flyperbole Twitter is active, but not active at all. Like it's there, but it's just basically so nobody takes the name. So Blue Sky's the place to reach me the most reliably, though. And follow, listen to Flyperbole, catch me over on the PHLY post games every now and then. I think the next one I'm doing is on Saturday night. So go check that out. And listen to all these great podcasts and videos over on Broad Street Hockey. All right. So we are going to sign off. Thanks to our great sponsor at FanDuel. And until next time, in the words of the great Gene Hart, good night and good hockey.